Hello, human design community and align with your design tribe and subscribers. I have a real treat for you. I'm so excited. Nicole has agreed to present a training just to my community, just for those that are on my mailing list. And she shared a couple of concepts that with me recently, and I just thought it was so perfect for just an introductory and also give you some real food for thought about how you're viewing yourself and viewing your life right now. And so I just want to welcome Nicole to introduce her through video to my community. And we are going to be doing a live call on the 10th of March at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And all those details will be in the email. You just click and join us on Zoom on Thursday, March 10th. How exciting is that? So without any further ado, we want to keep this really succinct and give you something that you can use in your life right now today. So I'm going to hand it over to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Nattalee. And hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today. I've gotten to know Nattalee for the last year, and so a lot of you probably have been following her for a really long time, and whether you're new to her list or you're, an old soul journey, have been on the journey with her for a long time, you know that the value she brings, and you know all of the insight that she has. And so I feel deeply honored to have been brought in to share with you guys. It's a huge honor for me, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right into this training that I've got. And we're really going to talk about this there's a business realm of what Nattalee and I have been working on with human design. How do we bring that to our business? That's kind of what she was helping me with. And I was helping her in a different aspect, but what we found is that we think that, there's a lot that needs to be done when we're thinking about what's a self-concept and what is the brand identity and how do we bring those things together with human design. I feel like it was really the missing piece for me. And so my name is Nicole Herring. I am a self-concept and brand identity coach. What I found through human design is my title, right? Like my life purpose is to initiate entrepreneurial women into their version of fulfillment, whatever that is. And it's initiating their brilliance. So I'm an NLP practitioner. I'm an idea innovator. I'm a limitation challenger, a visionary thinker. Sideline, I do writing and photography. I do art. I'm also a mom. I'm married. I live in Boulder, Colorado. So that's a little bit about me. I am also the founder of Brilliant Brain Training, which is the program that Nattalee is one of the coaches in. And so what it is it's a foundational life coaching program with 7 expert coaches who we support our clients to feel healed, whole, and vibrant. And so what I know is that focusing on healing and elevating our self-concepts is how we change the way we view ourselves. And how we view ourselves is how we view what we have to give to the world as far as our impact, because those things really do matter. And what I know is that your purpose empowers your impact, and your impact is a reflection of your self-concept. And all of that together is the foundation of a brand's identity. So especially if you're running a business and you're a healer, you're a coach, all of those types of things. I mean, any level of entrepreneur, the better healed and more full self-concept that you have, the further your success can take you. So what I would like to ask you is, what is your brand's identity? And what is your personal story? And how does your personal story transfer into your brand? Because here's what I know, not every brand is actually a personal brand, but when you do have a personal brand and your story is a part of how you impact others, one thing you're going to have to talk about is your story. And so I brought my love of writing into my business and really helping people understand the value of their stories and to create, honestly, a lot of clarity on their circumstances. Because those are the things that started to get a little bit messed up, where like the story wasn't serving them, it wasn't an empowering story. And so what are those circumstances and what's the story that wasn't serving them? And so here's what I'd like to say. A story is this. It's situational thoughts that are optional, relative, and they're yours. So we're going to break this down into more of a description, but I just want you to just think that in for a second. It's situational thoughts that are optional, they're relative, and they're yours. So situational means the situation is literally related to the circumstance around you. What's the situation? And so a lot of times we have circumstances that are around us, and every person's situation is going to be different. And so what that means is that the thoughts that you're going to have are going to be, could be the thoughts that one person has of a specific situation can vary from person to person, because while it's the same situation, the perspectives are different. And if you have 3 people in the same situation, they could all have varying perspectives. Like we don't all see things the same way. It's like the number one problem with conflict resolution, or having conflicting ideas or conflicting. Sometimes it's a conflict, and sometimes it's confrontational, right? That happens, and so you have varying perspectives, and it doesn't always mean that they line up, and that can be a problem. So situational. You also are going to have thoughts, and thoughts are the inner dialogue that you're going to have inside your mind, right? So you're going to have these thoughts, and your inner dialogue is from your perspective. And this is where some of those varying, like, well, I thought that you meant blah, 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 or I thought that this was going to happen, so I did X, Y, and Z, right? And so a situation on the surface level is very cut and dry from one perspective. And then when you integrate your own personal dialogue and you have your own thoughts about it, this is where things can start looking a lot different when you share the story from multiple perspectives. But here's what I want you to think about. These thoughts are optional. So whether or not you choose to engage in your thoughts, and whether or not you choose to feel them and agree with them, especially all the negative thoughts, our brain likes to default to negativity first and foremost, because the brain's job is to protect you from all kinds of harm and make sure that you're always safe. And so it's usually going to be like, don't go there, don't say that, don't do these things, right? Most of the brain's job and the purpose for you is to protect you. And a lot of times we've really mistaken what is an instinctual response from the brain for like self-preservation and survival with like what we learn in human design is like our instinctual versus what's the word, Nattalee? Tell me. Intuition, right? Sorry, thank you. I'm like, read my mind. So you have your instincts, which comes from the brain, and that's about survival. And then you have your intuition, which is like a spiritual experience, something you feel in your body. The brain's not really like needing to justify or explain away, but you have your instincts and then you have your intuition, and they're different. And so what I would like to challenge you to think about is that what if these thoughts were just something your brain was offering? What if you didn't have to believe them? What if you didn't have to engage with them? And what if you didn't project those thoughts out into the world? What if you had decided to be more responsive, which is what we learn in the human design community. And what I love so much about what Nattalee has to offer is that there is a strategy for leaning into your own wisdom and your own way of understanding things and engaging or disengaging with the brain, right? Like it was like, nope, your opinion's not relevant.
Yeah, and there's just a whole piece in human design. I mean, one of its main purpose is awareness, right? So just being aware of those thoughts, and certain people, have a tendency to think a certain way that is aligned or creates more alignment for them. And they also have ways of thinking that take them out of their alignment. So the thoughts are a big piece that cross over with human design that we can examine, but we're not going to do all that right now.
Yeah, but that's what I think is that where do those thoughts, where does that reactional thought process come from? And what we know is it's the conditioning. It's this conditioning of how we were raised. And so that's really that takes us right into the next slide, which is like, what is conditioning? Well, it's relative. And what does that mean when it's a relative? It's a reflection of your conditioning, and your conditioning comes from the thinking that is imprinted into us when we are children. So like from age 0 to 7, we just absorb a lot of what we learn in the world. We're just believing what we see as truth because this is all we know. We don't even have the capacity at that point to see that the world is as big as it really is, right? We just don't know what we don't know. And so anything that our parents are offering us or modeling to us or teaching to us, we take this as truth. Anything that our teachers are teaching us or offering to us, we take this as truth. And so then you have these, what you believe is just a reality for the world. And what I want you to do is challenge your thoughts in your brain and saying, what if this is only one perspective? What if this is only one lens in which to view this situation? What if my thoughts are a reaction from the way I was raised, and those, you know, those feelings and everything that I had to come up with it is just a reflection of my family life growing up. And that's when it becomes relative, because it's personal. And it becomes a conversation that happens basically in your unconscious. It's a wiring that happens. It's so far in the back, you don't even know that it's not a conscious decision. It's not a thoughtful reaction most of the time, right? It's a knee-jerk reaction. And so what I want you to understand is that these automatic thoughts, they come right out of circumstance that's outside of you, and your brain offers you a response from inside your brain, like at light speed. So most of the time, you're not taking the time to, unless you've learned your strategy and you've been implementing all of that, you're not taking the time to stop, breathe, and drop in and ask yourself, like, what is in this for me, right? And so I really want to encourage people to challenge the thoughts that come from the brain. What if you decided not to engage with the first initial thoughts that came up? What if you decided that, yep, these are optional, none of this is serving me, and I don't want to believe that? Or what if you said, actually, this thought I really do like, I'm going to hang on to it. I don't see any evidence or proof, but it serves me to help me get out of bed or get me motivated or whatever I'm doing. This is the thought I want to engage with. So when you think about that and you think, what do I want to think? What else could I think about this situation? What else could I think about this person? And ultimately, if you know how we reflect and project things into the world, the number one question you want to be asking yourself is what else can I be thinking about myself, right? So if there's anything that we're thinking or doing is a reflection of ourselves, and we're choosing not to be reactive in the world, and we want to be responsive, then who we are from here and how we respond from this grounded place within changes the way we respond to the world instead of being reactive or responsive. So let me go ahead over here. Of course, the last part of it is that it's yours. You claimed it. And most of the time we have not claimed our stories. It's just a story that we just kind of like downloaded, or we just like took into believe, or somebody else said something about us this one time, and we were just like, it's gospel, you know, or whatever. I don't know what people would say. Like, it just, you know, it's like set in stone. It's just a story that we believe. And so here's what I want you to know is that when it's yours and it's a story that you can claim, it's also something that you can change. So if you can claim it, you can change it. If you're just as a victim of the circumstance and you have no control over it, well, then you don't have any power in shifting that either. And so you might not be able to take ownership of a circumstance, but you do get to take ownership of the story of how that will work for your life. So, okay, I want to, just as a recap, what is the story? They are situational thoughts that are optional, relative, and they're yours. And so I want you to think about circumstances that are going on in your life and what you think about the circumstances that are happening right now. And I want you to think about maybe even circumstances of your past. And then I also want you to think about what you're intending to create for the future. What is the story that you want to be telling yourself about that? What is the story that you've had about it, right? And how do you want to shift that perspective? And so I can tell you from my perspective of working with a lot of women who have been coaches and healers, that we all have stories that sometimes serve us and sometimes they don't. And in fact, sometimes we have a story that does serve us until it doesn't. And so what does that mean? We have a story, but how do we get out of it? Because that's the most important part. Like most of the times it's like, okay, great. So I know I have a story. It's optional, it's relative, it's mine. Like, what do I do with that now, right? That's what we really want to know. And so this is where I wanted to kind of show you a little bit of an example, because I think it helps bring together the idea of like, how do we create the shift, or how does this even happen in the first place? So, and I love this example because I think it's really relatable for almost everyone, that at some point in elementary school, if you can imagine that something like this probably has happened to you, shift the circumstance in a way that serves you. But maybe at one point you raised your hand, a teacher asked a question, and you raised your hand and you had an answer to give. And the answer that you gave was wrong. And everyone in the class laughed at you. So given that circumstance, through 3 different perspectives, I mean, there could be 100 perspectives, 100 ways that people could take this, but we're going to just stick with 3. And so the first perspective is like, what if everyone laughed at you, right? Like, oh, like snickering, giggling. I have 3 kids, and so there's lots of laughing and snickering and giggling that happens at my house. I have boys, and they're actually not usually snickering. They're laughing really loud. There's a lot of noise in my house. But, you imagine that when everyone laughs, well, for one child, like that might make them feel really good. They might decide that they love being the funny guy or the funny woman or the one that has the good jokes. And it makes them feel good when other people are laughing, and they find that they have like a connection to a piece of their identity. Like, oh, being a comedian, making people laugh, I really enjoy that. And so in that decision, a child could be like, oh, I like being the funny person. I'm going to be the class clown. This really works for me. And so then there's like an unintentional but unintentional, there's a something that happens in their minds with like, more of this, please, right? And so then there's an opportunity for them to raise their hand and intentionally be wrong in class later the same day or the next day, and then they do it again, and it's like, and people laugh, and they're like, okay, this is working for me. And so it starts to perpetuate something of maybe this, becoming the class clown. Another way that a child could potentially perceive this is maybe they were completely ashamed or mortified. And what they felt was a bunch of negative emotions come up, and they just wanted to bury their head. And they said, I'm never going to raise my hand again. This was so embarrassing. I never want to have that happen. Everyone laughed at me. I was ashamed. And then in that place, they decide, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to withdraw. I'm not going to participate, because we don't even know, like, why is that the child's response? Why is shame or guilt or mortification a thing? But we don't know what's going on in the home life, right? We don't know if saying the wrong thing is potentially not just a bad idea, but maybe it's an unsafe idea, right? And so we don't know why the child defaults to shame or mortification or embarrassment in that situation, but it happens. And so now there's just this like imprinting, this like an affirmation that, yep, just being quiet and staying out of the way, not speaking up is safe for me. And so then they become a wallflower. They don't, maybe don't engage with their friends, that kind of stuff. The next one is, and I'll be honest, this is something that I have to work with my oldest, because he loves being smart. And so if he has had the wrong answer, sometimes he just thought, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. I was totally mortifying. I don't like being wrong. Being wrong is bad, right? Making mistakes, he takes it very personal. And so for some people, they would say, listen, I don't ever want to have the wrong answer again. So now I'm going to become the star student. I'm going to become the perfect kid. I'm going to always have the right answers. I'm going to try my hardest to be perfect. I'm going to always be, really becoming the people pleasing and, brown nosers, like all the things that like, this is how I get love. This is how I get, feel safe in my environment and safe with my people, is by being perfect. And so then it's like, it's a connection to their identity that's just not possible. So then they start perpetuating this whole life that I always have to be right. I do not like to be wrong, because, X, Y, and Z, you fill in the blank. What is the emotion somebody feels if they're not being perfect? What else might they feel? You could take that 100 different ways. So this is what we talk about with the imprinting phase. And this is what happens when your age is 0 to 7. You start to really learn about how the world works around you. And then once you're 7, you start to really understand, how do I work inside this world? And this is when you start seeing the way you engage in more social settings that are outside the home. Unless, a child goes to daycare earlier on, they may or may not be in social environments. And so now there's this other way of, how do I feel in a social environment? How do I do this in school? How do I behave on a sports team? These kind of things. And we make decisions about who we are and how we feel from that perspective. And so what we end up doing is that for the next 20, 30, 40, 70 years of our life, if we don't interrupt any of these patterns is continue to collect the evidence that I have to be perfect to be loved. I have to stay safe by being small and withdrawn and being quiet, and speaking out is not okay for me. Yeah, I love, being funny and making people laugh. But at some point, this is what I was talking about. Like sometimes these stories, sometimes they might serve you to a point, and then it doesn't. And so it's like becoming a perfectionist and always wanting to be smart as an adult, it keeps you from taking risks or putting yourself out there, especially if you're an entrepreneur or if you're running a business or you're in corporate and like applying for a promotion or, putting a new offer out there. That, needing to be safe with the lens of a perfectionist is really hard to accomplish. Similarly, like being the light and easygoing person who is always making people laugh and making people feel good, but having something that's really passionate for you and weighs you on your heart, but you're like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, no one's going to take me seriously, or I don't take myself seriously, right? So there's like that perspective of it. And then there's even, the side of like, sorry, I'm gonna like grab my notes here for 1 second. I feel like I missed something. Oh yeah, it was talking about vulnerability. And so we think about what vulnerability is talking in front of people and being outspoken, right? Like somebody might disagree with me, and that, like, I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to handle if somebody disagrees with me. And then it's where you start to understand you have, patterns of avoiding conflict, or because conflict was confrontational during your imprinting phase. And so we just like keep the peace at any price, right? I've heard a lot of people talking about that. And so what I know is that even with my own visibility journey, there has been things that I've had to overcome with me personally, through my own business and even being visible in my business. And it, that's part of it. And so that's why I have so much healing work, or have so much gratitude for this healing work. And when I think about where I was a few years ago, I actually went to an event and I mustered all the courage because I was like, I have to transform this one story, this piece of my story that I actually shared in my program. But, it's a very vulnerable story. And I had the courage to get up and stand at the microphone at a large conference in front of like 150 women. And my coach at the time, she got down off the stage and she came down and she was, kind of like, I felt like, oh no, she's coming down here. My hands are sweating and I was all shaky. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't, now I'm going to cry. And I did. I cried in front of all these women and I breathed out my story. I actually spoke the words of something that I had never said before. And I realized, okay, this is the story that I have to heal. This is the story that I have to release. And there was not a dry eye in the entire conference room. And after the fact, the whole time I was up there, I was just shaking like a leaf, adrenaline, safety, run, hide, like all of the self-preservation things that the instinct of the brain was telling me to do. My body was on fire. And I don't mean like the lit up human design, this is what you want. It was the other part was like, you are not safe. People are going to say things about this. But what I want you to know is that my courage to do that, it not only led me right here into this room so that I could speak with you and all of that, it led me right into the program where I decided to become an NLP coach to help heal women of their stories. But it was initiation for an entire room full of women, because I cannot tell you the number of women who came up after that session and they said, you showed me the wounds that I have been avoiding. And I know that the problems that I've been having in my relationship and in my business are 100% from this. I have actually buried the story so far into my like I acted like it was no big deal and that none of that mattered. And it was just like, it gave me chills. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, what I thought was about to be the most embarrassing, horrific moment of my life, crying in front of a crowd full of women, ended up being, I just made friends left and right. People are like, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for healing all of this. And what I didn't know was that the decision to go to the mic at that moment was going to be just the first step, right? Because the awareness is one thing and the healing is the next. And so that's what I bring within our program. And what I love about my program is doing the deep work and really spending time to love and care and be concerned for ourselves. And when I got to the point where I was feeling like, okay, this story is not keeping me down anymore, but who am I without my story? Like there was a piece of me that didn't know what to do next. And that's where human design was like the game changer in my life. And that was when I met Nattalee, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that I was looking for you when I was looking for you, but I knew that it was the piece that I was missing. And so when her and I said, okay, we need to do this program together, we need to create a vision for help people to come and be healed whole and feel vibrant and return to themselves, and without the resistance on how to implement their design, how to go with their strategy, and how to do all those things. And so this is just what we want to talk about, is really, what is your story? How do you want your story to look in the future? What's holding you back? What's keeping you from doing the thing that you most want to do? What's keeping you from honoring your strategy? What is the resistance in there? How can we heal that tension? How can we heal those stories? And, like I said, sometimes you're gonna have stories that served you for a while. It's potentially you were, in a situation of survival mode, and whatever story you needed to get through at time was fine. When do we move on? How do we get out of that story? That's what this program is for. And so what I want you to understand is that your story comes from a place, your redemption story, where it comes from is just part of this journey. Like, you've done nothing wrong. The heroine's journey, it has its ups and downs, right? And so if you're on a place where you're wanting to, okay, heal the stories and really go into that next place of advancing your life and elevating your self-concept and shifting your perspective, or shifting your career, doing things that are more aligned, and you want to get rid of all this conditioning, this is what we do. And so what I want you to understand is that, hold on, let me think 1 second. I get going off on tangents. Let me just 1 second review my note. Okay. Oh yeah, so this is what I want to say, is that as you're making those shifts, and as you're moving into the new realm, the new world, if you've ever done any storytelling classes, or if you've ever read anything about the personal journey, the heroine's journey, all that kind of stuff, there's like this opportunity when you get to go into the new world, and you're going to be on your journey, and people say, yep, I was in the right place at the right time, and the things that I was looking for, that next level of my life, it happened for me. And what I think is that a lot of times this phrase is really misunderstood. What people tend to think of being in the right place at the right time is about their circumstances. They think that circumstantially they were at the right restaurant. Circumstantially, they were in the right building, getting a coffee at the right place, that they went to the right dinner party, and they met the right person at the right time. And I want to challenge that, and I want you to debunk it, and I want to say none of that is true. Circumstances happen all the time. The question is, are you in the right place mentally and emotionally when an opportunity comes your direction? This is where people are often not in the right place at the right time. And so what happens is that there's an opportunity for you to create a boundary. There's an opportunity for you to establish a barrier, sever a leaky relationship, and they're like, this isn't working for me. There's an opportunity for you to recognize opportunity in itself. There's a relationship, you're supposed to be connecting with somebody specific, moments when you are meeting someone that you're like, these paths are supposed to cross. The question then is, are you mentally and emotionally, energetically in the right place at the right time? And so I know that sometimes, there's been survival seasons. I've had 3 kids. It's like, no, I barely showered. I was like barely late picking my kids up from school, but at the same time, I was very desperate for friendship. But I was not mentally in the right place at the right time to be, being a good friend, even though that's what I really needed. I was just very in survival mode. And so I had to get to a point where I was like taking better care of myself, getting my, energy in place. I was taking naps and doing a bunch of things. And then it was like, of course, not long after that, my energy was almost magnetic, and I would go to drop my kids off at school. I would have extra time. I would have margins of time. I wasn't rushing everywhere. I wasn't overtired. And it was like, oh yeah, I've got 10 minutes to talk. I've got 30 minutes. Like, I'm totally free for coffee. Like, what are the odds, right? Because I created margins in my life. I got my mind, my energy, my emotions into a better place, which meant I started making friends. And then it was like same thing with my business. When I was going through frantic energy and I was like, oh, I want to, create a business. I don't know. Will anybody want to work with me? And a lot of nervousness on establishing that. Of course, no one wanted to work with me. I was just, my self-concept was like in the pits. I didn't believe in myself. And there was no way I was going to get clients to believe in me when I didn't believe in me. And so I had to get my mental and emotional place, get to the right place for me. And of course, once that happens, this is when a lot of doors started opening. And so this is what the phrase that I talk about it. And Nattalee, you were telling me, which I didn't know because it's not in my chart, that being in the right place at the right time is something it's a specific gate.
Yeah, it's specifically to 46 gate that sits at the identity center, but the whole channel, the 29 to the 46, it's the determination of the self. It's called one of many things, but one of the things it says that someone that possesses that activation is that they can be in the right place at the right time. And when I was reviewing this previously, that kind of popped up for me, and that even the whole concept of being in the right place, the right time really sits with me very deeply, because it happens to be one of the only two channels that I have is the 29 to the 46. And what flashes for me is the times when it did happen, when there were very fortuitous meetings and opportunities and things I couldn't have planned. And I have to say, without going into a lot of detail about the story, but one in particular really sticks out for me is that my body told me I needed to go to a particular meeting. And I had fallen and hurt myself and my body was aching, but I just knew. And so it was following my strategy. My gut was saying I had to go to this meeting, and I did. And I ended up meeting someone I hadn't seen in 7 years. And I ended up getting a job, a coaching job. And I mean, just led to a really big opportunity for me. So, as we cross over human design with your training, which has just been fabulous. I hope people took a lot of notes, because there's so many coaching tips in here. But yes, it wasn't anything that I could think of. It was something I just knew I had to do, and that I had prepared for that I was actually looking for the kind of position that this person was offering. So, a lot of things came together. And of course, there's been a lot of times when I'm like, well, where's the opportunity? Am I lined up for what it is that I am saying in my mind that I'm seeking? So just wanted to add that so people would make that correlation, because some people might also remember that the 2946 is also referred to the channel of discovery and being in the right place at the right time.
I love it. And I would love to just really emphasize and point out that your brain offered reasons why you didn't want to go, right? Your brain offered a lot of those reasons. You're like, I had fallen, my body was not feeling well, but yet, tapping in and be like, is that really what I want to be thinking? Because there's a reason why I'm being drawn to this. And so sometimes it's like saying, no, actually, I do need to stay home and rest my body and heal my body. In some circumstances, that would have been the right choice. But in this place, you followed your strategy, and it proved to open doors and lead you. And so being in the right place at the right time, maybe it doesn't mean you're in perfect health to be at the right place at the right time, right? It doesn't mean, but you gotta say I actually am making this decision from a grounded, healthy place. And that's the difference.
Absolutely. I could only drive with one arm. I'm like, in the whole time my mind is going on the way to this meeting. It's like, are you sure you're gonna be able to do this? And it was like, there was a burning thing inside of me that said I had to go. It was very interesting. Thanks for pointing that out, which Nicole is so good at, by the way. I just want to say, her helping me rewire and reconcept some of my stories has been a life changer for me in the last year. It's really helped me be able to bring my life's work out to the public in a much more grounded and beneficial way for everyone. So I just have an opportunity to thank her again in an audience for how she's contributed to me many, many ways, but particularly around my story. So I hope you've taken a lot of notes, and we're going to finish this off here. Back to you, Nicole.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And that really just makes me, of course, feel so great. We're a great team because, of course, you've given me so much as well. So we really balance each other in a way that I had not had with any other coach before in this relationship. It really is very symbiotic. The energy feeds each other. And so I love that we're going to be bringing this to our community. So thank you again for this opportunity. Being in a community full of courageous and empowered women is really near and dear to my heart, because if you saw, like, there was that the slides of me being in a room full of women, and I think the communities of healing women has really changed my perspective of what not only I'm possible, but what women together are possible, what women doing together makes possible, and the collective energy is just like nothing I've seen before. And so I know I've met some of my very best friends in some of these types of programs, and so I know that building this and offering it is, not even taking into consideration all of the stuff that's been going on for the last 2 years. We are dying for community in a way that we have never done before, right? But I feel like we are moving towards a community from all of the circumstances of the world, and I think we're just all ready for it. We're wanting it. We're thriving it. And so what I know is that Brilliant Brain Training has been my life's work. It's the thing that I did to transform my life. It is how I changed my relationship at every level. It changed my relationship with my kids. It changed my relationship with my husband. It changed my relationship even with my parents and extended family members, especially those ones that are like full of tension. It's really changed my relationship with my business and all of my business colleagues. But most importantly, this program, I created it to change the relationship that I had with myself, because I knew that was the part that was the most important. Was how do I create a healed, whole, and vibrant version of me? How do I do that? And then bring that version of me to everything else. And that was the catalyst. And being able to be in a community of women who are on the same journey while their details are different, that was just everything. So I just want to encourage you to know your stories and understand your stories, and then just to challenge, is this story working for me? Is this serving me? And if it's not, and you're ready to be fully supported in your journey, we invite you to join us. So we start in April, and of course next week, or not next week, on the 10th.
Yes.
We're working this in advance. On the 10th, you'll have an opportunity to come and ask us your questions and get some feedback, and just see if this program is a great fit for you. Or you don't even have to ask questions about the program. You can come and ask for some feedback on this training and how can we shift your story. You don't have to decide to work with us in the next program to come and get value from this recording and come to that live training or live coaching. Either is fine. All of you are welcome. So thank you again, Nattalee. And that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Nicole. This has been just really rich and just full of great little coaching tips. And I just want to invite everyone again to come on March 10th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. The notes will be in the email, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, the notes are below this video, to join us. And, come with questions about anything that was in this video, or another part about how human design and this program comes together, anything. We just wanted to, and I love my community, and I love whenever I can give them value and have them join me and be live with me, and you to be live with me and Nicole on March 10th. So with that, we will see you then. And we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Bye, everyone.